All right, Paul. I thought this would be a good way to illustrate when we talk about spine and arrows and matching arrows to a bow. What you see in front of you, and let me apologize right now for the backdrop and the poor lighting when I'm doing this in my basement. This is a spine meter. This is a way of measuring the spine of an individual arrow. And as you can see here, I've got three samples. I've got this, what is this? This is 5/16 inch dowel, and obviously pretty thin. So you put it on the rest here. Make sure that you're zeroing it out to get a proper reading. Put on a 2-pound weight right about the middle. And as you can see, that's coming in at just about 32.5 pounds. Okay, so that would match about a 30 to 35 pound bow. Okay, so you can make an arrow out of that for a lightweight bow or a children's bow. If I go and I do one of these arrows that I already have, this one is made of ash, the other one is made of fir. If I set that on there, and again, we zero it out, put on the 2-pound weight, right about the middle point, that comes in at about 47.5 pounds. So that would be good for a 45 to 50 pound bow, or maybe 50 or even 55, depending on the bow and the circumstances. But you can see that's the amount of deflection, the bend here in the bow, you get as soon as you release the string on the arrow. The energy comes through the nock, travels throughout the arrow, but much like a car moving along the road, right? The energy doesn't just hit the arrow evenly. It starts back here and it travels through the arrow. And as it does, it's going to cause the arrow to flex, right? So as it starts here, it pushes and it's going to flex. Now the archer's paradox, as I talked about before, means that you will have, if the arrow is spined correctly to the bow, it will flex around the bow and continue on as if it was shot straight through the handle, as if there was no handle there. And here's another example. That one needs to be right there. And this one is coming in at about, was that 41? 41, 42. Again, that would be good for a bow of about 40 pounds draw weight, 40 to 45, give or take. There is a little bit of variance with this. You don't have to be dead on, say, 40 pounds or whatever for a 45-pound bow or whatever the parameters are. Generally, that's close enough. Some woods are better at matching up better than others. They say Sitka spruce is remarkably consistent. You know, if it comes in at 45 pounds or somewhere along there, or 43, it's going to stay within 1 or 2 pounds for most of that tree, you know, or most of the size of the dowel. That's where arrow selection is important. If you just run out and get a dowel from a home center, and they may all be the same size, right? Traditional arrows are like 5/16, 23/64, 3/8 for the really heavy stuff. But if you just go out and grab a handful of dowels from a home center and just put fletching on them and a point, you're going to be all over the place. So that's why spine is very important. That's why it's also very important to match the spine to your bow. If you have any questions, be sure and let me know. I hope this helps. Trust me, the spine, there's an old saying, it's pretty easy to make a bow. Making arrows is hard, okay? And this is why. You have to match it up. You have to make sure that you're consistent throughout, right? You want the same size fletching. You want the same weight points. As you can see on here, I've got a field point, and that's about 125 grains. I think on this one I went up to 165, and just that relative small amount of weight makes a big difference. So you have to be careful when you choose all that stuff. Most everybody starts out with field points, and that's great. It's a wonderful general point that you can shoot anywhere and anyhow you want. For targets, for stump shooting, wandering around outside, flight shooting, whatever you want to, for anything you want to do, even hunting. I mean, for small game, you can use them for that. You may notice here that I've got a 3 fletch on this arrow and a 4 fletch on this other one. It really 3 is the traditional, and it makes a lot of sense for a lot of reasons. You're saving on materials and time and all that, but the only advantage to the 4 fletch is that you never have to worry about registering your arrow. You just put it on the string and go. So the one downside to doing that is that the arrow adds a bit more drag. On the plus side, the more drag means it tends to straighten out and fly straighter sooner. On the downside, it generally doesn't fly as far because there is more drag. I'm sorry, I've been rambling on a little bit, but I hope this helps and explains a little bit why this is so important. Having said that, it's fairly easy to overcome. Once you know what your bow's weight is, and you factor in a few considerations. For example, I noticed that yours is sort of a traditional, what we call flat bow, where the handle is stiff and non-bending, but narrow, and then the limbs are wider and thinner and bend out from a few inches above the handle. Generally, what that means is all else being even. If your bow at your draw weight, at your draw length, comes in at say 60 pounds, then you find arrow shafting that is spined at 55 pounds, or usually closer to 55 pounds. And, then you can assemble them. Now, assembling arrows is fairly fun, but that's why spine is important, and I'll save the assembling arrows things for another day. But with the right equipment and the right setup, you can do it pretty quickly. Even with very basic tools, you can make arrows pretty quickly. As you can see here, all you basically need, of course, is the shaft, the point, maybe a way to taper the point. That doesn't have to be anything great or wonderful. Feathers. That's a little bit of a science stuff. You have to make sure that you're using either all right wing or all left wing. If you mix them up, the arrow flies like crazy. Maybe a little string on here, depending on whether or not you've got an arrow rest on your bow, to make sure that as the arrow clears the bow, that you're not getting scratched and cut, as you're going by like that. So that's there's a lot of science in arrows, and a lot of science in archery, but there's also a lot of tradition, I guess, too. So if you have any questions, I realize it's kind of blown through this, but I thought this might be more illustrative than just me sending you an email. And if you have any questions or if you need any help, just contact me. All right, thanks a lot.